Gladys Knight, the woman the world knew as the Empress of Soul, had spent more than 7 decades building a career that seemed unshakable. Her voice carried generations, her songs were stitched into the hearts of millions, and even at the age of 81, she was still filling arenas with her powerful presence. Fans admired her as a legend who never slowed down, someone who proved that age could not silence talent. But just when people thought they knew everything about her story, destiny took an unexpected turn. Instead of the headlines celebrating her music, the news was suddenly filled with shocking claims that left the world confused and divided. Her only son, Shanga Hankerson, came forward with accusations that shook the foundation of her image. He claimed his mother was not the strong and unstoppable woman everyone thought she was. In his words, Gladys was allegedly forgetting lyrics on stage, losing her focus, and struggling to keep up with the demanding schedule. He even said that her health was quietly slipping, and behind closed doors, she was not the woman fans saw under the bright lights. According to him, she was being pushed far beyond her limits, not out of love for the music, but because of manipulation from her husband, William McDowell. Shanga painted a heartbreaking picture of his mother as someone being forced into long tours when she should have been resting and enjoying her legacy. Let me tell you, this is how the story started twisting in ways no one could have expected. Fans who adored Gladys were left shocked. Was it true that her husband was controlling her, using her name and her health for his own gain? You won't believe how emotional Shanga's words were. He said he did not want his mother traveling on a tour bus at her age, confused and disoriented, wondering where she was. He claimed he had seen moments when her backup singers had to step in to cover for her mistakes, when the band had to replay parts of songs so she could catch up, and when teleprompters had to be rewound just to help her finish a performance. For his son, he said it was painful to watch, and he wanted the world to know the truth. But here is the shocking part. Gladys Knight herself did not stay silent. Instead of agreeing with her son or showing even a small sign of weakness, she fired back. She made it clear that the stories about her health and performances were, in her own words, misrepresentations. She told her fans that she was happy, healthy, and more than ready to continue performing. She said her son's claims were not only wrong but unfair, and her representatives even warned that legal action could be taken against him. What makes this story different is the fact that it was not outsiders or tabloids spreading rumors about Gladys Knight. It was her own son, someone who should have been her protector. The craziest part was that while Shanga was crying out for people to save his mother, Gladys was standing strong and declaring that she needed no saving at all. Gladys Knight's response only made the situation more complicated, because instead of calming the storm, it added fuel to the fire. Fans were now caught between two completely different versions of reality. On one side was her son, Shanga Hankerson, who insisted that his mother was being exploited, her health declining while she was still being pushed onto stage after stage. On the other side stood Gladys herself, boldly denying every single claim and insisting that she was thriving, strong, and ready to keep performing alongside legends like Patti LaBelle and Chaka Khan. This is where it gets interesting because both sides sounded convincing in their own way, and the public did not know whom to trust. Shanga's words carried the pain of a son who seemed desperate. He described how heartbreaking it was to watch his mother struggle through shows, losing her place in songs, and sometimes zoning out completely until backup singers helped her find her way again. He said he didn't care about her career, her money, or her fame. He only cared about her being safe and happy in her later years. To many people, his plea sounded sincere, even heroic, as if he was fighting to protect his mother before it was too late. But here is the shocking part. While Shanga claimed he was protecting Gladys, her representatives turned the spotlight back on him, pointing out that he had not been close to his mother in years. They questioned why he was suddenly speaking out so loudly and whether his motives were truly about love or something far more complicated. You won't believe the details that came next. Shanga had not only accused Gladys's husband of manipulating her, but also of controlling the narrative in public, creating an image of a strong and unstoppable performer while allegedly hiding the reality behind the scenes. According to him, William McDowell was both mentally and financially abusing Gladys, using her career as a way to secure his own power. These words created shockwaves across the entertainment world. People started asking whether the Empress of Soul was secretly trapped in her own marriage. Yet at the same time, Gladys's own statement and her legal team's warnings painted Shanga as the one with questionable credibility. What makes this story different? Usually, when a family member raises such serious concerns about an elderly parent, the family comes together, or at least tries to find common ground. But in this case, it became a public battle, with mother against son and husband caught in the middle. Fans were torn. Some said Shanga was the only one brave enough to tell the truth. Others said Gladys deserved respect for defending herself and refusing to be seen as weak. The craziest part was that the entire world was now watching a private family war unfold like a scandalous drama, where every new statement seemed to twist the story in another direction. The storm around Gladys Knight did not quiet down. In fact, it grew louder as more layers of this family feud came into the light. Gladys had already made it clear that she was healthy and strong, but her son's words still echoed across social media, fueling endless debates. Fans kept asking the same question: who was telling the truth? This is how the controversy deepened, because the past came rushing back to haunt Shanga Hankerson, and it changed how people looked at his accusations. Years before this drama, Shanga had already made headlines, but not in a way that made him look trustworthy. He had been involved in a major scandal with his restaurant business, Gladys Knight's Chicken and Waffles. What once seemed like a promising empire collapsed under accusations of shady management and millions in unpaid debts. Gladys herself was forced to take legal steps to remove her name from the business after it was tied to lawsuits and financial ruin. Destiny took an unexpected turn back then, too, as the proud mother had to separate her legendary name from her own son's failed venture. So when Shanga came forward now, claiming his mother was being mistreated, many fans remembered his past troubles and started questioning if his sudden concern was really about love or about money and damaged reputation. But here is the shocking part. Not everyone dismissed him. Some supporters argued that a troubled past did not mean he was lying now. They believed his emotional words about his mother's health sounded genuine, and that sometimes the truth comes from those who are not perfect themselves. They pointed out that Gladys was, after all, 81 years old, and the possibility of her being overworked was not something to ignore. This is where it gets interesting, because while critics painted Shanga as untrustworthy, others saw him as the only one brave enough to speak up. Meanwhile, Gladys and her team stayed firm. Her lawyers signaled that they were ready to fight back against what they called false and defamatory claims. They said her son had little to no contact with her in recent years, and that his sudden concern looked suspicious at best. To them, this wasn't just about shutting down gossip, it was about protecting her legacy from being dragged through the mud again. What makes this story different is the way it forced fans to pick sides. Was Shanga the protective son, warning the world about his mother's decline? Or was he repeating his old pattern of chaos and disappointment? The craziest part was that the truth seemed to shift depending on whose voice you believed. Gladys Knight's story had always been about strength, survival, and rising above the odds, but this family feud threatened to overshadow the legacy she built. For decades, she had been admired as a woman who turned struggles into stepping stones. She faced failed marriages, battled addiction, fought for custody of her son, and still came out as the Empress of Soul who inspired millions. Let me tell you, this is how Gladys proved time and again that nothing could silence her. So when she stood up now at 81 and told the world she was healthy, happy, and in control, it was not the first time she had to silence doubt. But here is the shocking part. This time, the doubt was coming from inside her own family. Fans could not stop talking about the drama. On Twitter and Facebook, the reactions were split in half. Some said Shanga was nothing more than a bitter son with a messy history, trying to drag his mother down once again. Others argued that he might be the only one seeing the truth, warning that signs of her declining health should not be ignored. This is where it gets interesting, because while older fans stood firmly with Gladys, trusting her words and remembering the decades of music she gave them, younger audiences questioned whether she was really safe or simply hiding behind her pride and determination. What makes this story different? It was not just another celebrity gossip headline. It was a heartbreaking clash between a mother, her only son, and the man she chose as her partner. The craziest part was that no matter which side people believed, the damage was already done. Gladys's name was being pulled into controversy when it should have been celebrated. Instead of the spotlight being on her music, it was on her family feud. Destiny took an unexpected turn, and the world was left watching to see if this battle would end in reconciliation or in a courtroom. Some believed Gladys would rise again and prove her strength just as she always had. Others feared this scandal might shape how her final chapter would be remembered. In the end, the question remained: was Shanga a protective son fighting for his mother's well-being, or a man trapped by his past, stirring chaos when she least needed it? And was Gladys truly as unstoppable as she declared, or was she hiding her struggles to protect her empire from crumbling? The truth was still unclear, and that mystery is exactly what kept everyone hooked. One thing was certain: this family battle had already become one of the most unforgettable controversies in the history of soul music.